Hello, happy Sunday. Thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about luxury real estate and specifically the project that Empress Bern is doing at Playa Bonita, which is the Westin Residences branded condo project. So let's get into some details. And then later, I'm going to play just the remainder of an interview that I did with Liz, and she's going to talk about deal structures. So this was actually really interesting to put together the information for this video because I'm not in the market as a luxury real estate buyer. And also I would probably have some hesitations about pre-construction just based on a past experience that I had. But I do think there are a lot of benefits to pre-construction. However, I was doing a little bit of research, and this price per square meter on the Bern development is actually pretty high comparatively when you look at resale properties that are going for less per square meter. But there are, pros and cons to why a buyer, an investor, doesn't mind paying a premium. So we're going to talk about that, and we'll get into the details. So I showed you before in a previous video that the area where this project is Playa Bonita, and there's currently a Dreams hotel that Bern does not operate the hotel, but it's there in that little beachfront property, and then an existing Westin hotel, and then a condo building that's mostly residences called Casa Bonita. And the new project, the Palma Bonita, is going to be breaking ground as soon as they, sell a certain percentage of the units and can break ground for the construction. So the area across from where the project is going to be is Panama Pacifico. Talked about that in the other video, but there's that's where like grocery shopping would be. There's some medical clinics, international school, grocery store, hardware store, and there's going to be a golf course under development that Panama Pacifico is going to be doing. And there's also a small international airport in Panama Pacifico. So it seems like mostly the flights are from Wingo, but if you like to fly, within Panama, like up to David, maybe to get to Bogus or to Colombia, this location would be a really good location because you wouldn't have to go to Tocumen Airport. And as I was mentioning before, there's a lot of projected growth and economic growth specifically in this area that would make this project of Palma Bonita a Westin residence. It would make it desirable. There's the new tunnel that's going to be built under the canal. There's a new bridge that's going next to the Bridge of Americas, the existing, the closer bridge to the city. And there's a cruise terminal that sees about 7,000 people in the cruise ship terminal. And there's also the convention center that has capacity for 20,000 people. Tourism is on the rise. There are some, kind of mixed outlooks on real estate in general, but I'm just going to focus on this project and encourage you to do your due diligence and your research. Empress Bern is developing the project, and through their company called B, they will be managing the hotel. They've done a lot of corporate executive rentals for the past 15 years, and it's likely that some of those executives from multinational companies would be renters in this building. And just to clear up, so Marriott is the umbrella company, and then the brand Westin Residences is under that umbrella. Bern purchased the franchise from Marriott and as the developer and the hotel operator. So let's look at who this project might be good for. Someone who travels frequently, internationally, maybe 6 to 8 times a year, with trip durations for weekends to several weeks at a time. Obviously, this person is preferring some luxury, high-end accommodations, like the Marriott's luxury brands, the St. Regis, Ritz-Carlton, Westin, JW Marriott, and the W hotels. This, luxury profile person values the consistency, the high quality service, the well-appointed rooms, all the amenities, the pools, the restaurants, the bars, just that whole upscale lifestyle. And having those nice amenities like, a nice spa where you can get spa services, fine dining, convenient locations, and personalized attention, and the kind of loyalty membership programs and the perks that go along with that. So this luxury buyer, why would they be interested in the Westin branded residence in Panama? Well, they're familiar with the brand and they trust the brand. That's a big deal. Panama specifically, it's a prime location in an emerging market. And I love Panama, so that's an easy thing to talk about how wonderful Panama is. But I think for investors, they're looking at the favorable tax structure and future growth and benefits. But I think also the buyer for this type of property is someone who might just want it for their own personal use and maybe doesn't even want to put the condo in the rental pool, because I could see if somebody's world traveling and they want to just stay in Panama for 3 to 4 months a year, and then they go to Europe or wherever else they go, I could see that as being a reason to go with a branded condo as opposed to just a regular condo. Because if they're used to having those luxury amenities, it's kind of like you're buying into that lifestyle, which would be really nice. So also, there is the investment potential for appreciation. It's never guaranteed, obviously. And if they are interested in doing the rental pool, that's a nice option to offset some costs. Though, the rental market is typically in November to, April. That's, typically when the highest tourist season is. And so that would likely be the months that the property would be available for rent. And these are not short-term rental options. The minimum for, if you're in the rental program, is a month. As an owner, you can use your property whenever you want and for however long you want. You can come for a weekend, stay all year, whatever you want to do. But if you put the condo in the rental pool, that minimum is a month. So some other positives to having that Westin branded residence: pretty much hassle-free ownership. the Westin residences at Playa Bonita are going to come with management services. A nice perk is that in addition to the pools, there'll be a rooftop pool and like a main floor pool. Owners will have access to the Pearl Club, which is the oceanfront club that has a spa, it has a Clarence spa, a restaurant, and a gym. But that's nice to have like the oceanfront pool, and it's a really pretty pool. So that luxury hotel lifestyle is appealing to all of us, but it's definitely out of my budget at the moment. And when you buy a property in this project, you automatically get gold member Bonvoy membership. So I could definitely see that as a perk for someone who already is a Marriott brand fan and travels, exclusively in that hotel chain. Because then to own your own place and be upgraded to the gold member level, where you get other like travel perks and special offer access, upgrades, experiences. You get preferred room rates with partner hotels. You even get perks on the Ritz-Carlton yachts. So if you're booking your your cruise on that Ritz-Carlton yacht, you get certain benefits for that. You also have access to a residential concierge, and those are highly trained and I believe certified people. So you can really use that to your advantage when you're, planning travel, have questions. I could really see a benefit for using the travel concierge or residential concierge. And some of the projects have special designated areas for their gold members, kind of like, a club access. There are 700 branded residences around the world, and that has increased in the past 10 years. People apparently are very interested in the quality control. It's very important for investors when they're considering purchasing international properties. And the owners of the Westin residence will get a royal card for discounts in the other properties, like the Dreams and the Westin Hotel, in those restaurants and bars. There's so many perks and benefits, it's hard to keep track of, but another loyalty program that Westin Residences is rolling out is called the Envia program, and that just kind of elevates the level of perks and benefits. So for someone who travels a lot and enjoys staying at Marriott properties, I can definitely see how this project would be appealing to them. All right, let's get into a little bit of the details about pricing and the actual condo sizes and furnishings and all that stuff. I'll try not to overwhelm you with details because there are many. The project is set to be completed in 2029, and they're going to start in the low 400,000. That's the pre-construction pricing. Starts in the low 400s for the smaller unit, and then for the larger units, it's in like the low 600s. And those prices go up, according to the developer, as the project starts to sell. So that, I guess, is the incentive for people to get in on the earlier pricing of pre-construction. It is, a fairly high price per square meter. I was saying, like, there are other projects that are lower. So this price per square meter is about $5,000 per square meter. And in Costa del Este, the average price per square meter is about $3,600. In Punta Pacifica, it's $3,100. In Casco Viejo, it's about $4,100. And in Santa Maria, it's about $4,500. It's definitely significantly higher. Though I think, Panama's a place where there's always room for negotiation. So I'm sure if you're an investor and you're familiar with real estate investing, you can always try and negotiate. Why not? In this first quarter of 2025, there were recorded about 16,000 pre-construction condos on the market, and that covers 412 projects. So that's, that's a lot of units for a relatively small geographical area, and not a robust real estate market necessarily. Benefits of pre-construction: allows you to space out the payments, take advantage of the tax exonerations, and then you defer the purchase, to a later date. So for people who have money that they're moving around, maybe taking it out of, the stock market in the US, putting it into other things, or maybe they have a little bit of cash to put, for the down payment and the first few payments, but then have plans to sell something later for the final payments. It's all a little bit of a juggling act when it comes to financing property. Okay, so the project details: there's going to be 350 units, and there are a very limited number of these 2-bedroom and flexible studio space, 3-bathroom units with a private balcony. Those are going to be 1,340 square feet. Those are kind of like the premium units. I don't know if you're familiar with other projects, but typically they might have like a larger size unit, ocean facing, or, at the best location of the building. Those units might be a little bit different. So that's a 2-bedroom, which actually can be converted into a 3-bedroom. And those units are actually like 2 apartments in one. It has one main entry, from like the public hallway, but then a 1-bedroom little studio unit, actually it's a 1-bedroom unit, can be locked off from the larger either 1-bedroom, or you can convert it into a 2-bedroom unit. The reason I think that is so amazing is for anyone who might be older and need nursing care, you could have a live-in caregiver stay in that smaller 1-bedroom unit, and you live in the larger 1-bedroom unit, or convert that to a 2-bedroom. I really just like that idea. I just always have loved the idea of having flexible space, and so this project has a lot of options for flexible space. Another size unit is a 1-bedroom with a den that can be converted into 2 bedrooms. And those have 2 bathrooms, no balcony, and that's 861 square feet. There will be, the different views from the building. You're gonna have a sunrise versus sunset view. So this building will have some units that are facing like the rainforest and the city and the canal, like where the ships line up. And then the other units will be, like west facing for the sunset. Now that might sound really appealing, but those are gonna get hot. So if it's going to be for your own use, you might want to consider getting the sunrise view, because that afternoon sun can be brutal. I know from being at Royal Palm, because that's directly like, east and west facing, and I've stayed on both sides of that building, and the west side is always like significantly hotter. The condos will come fully furnished, hotel quality. Even the mattress has to be Marriott approved, which I think would be awesome. That they kind of estimate to be like a $35,000 or $40,000 value. And then floors 25, 26, and 27 are going to be penthouse apartments. So if you're really in that luxury lifestyle, what could be better than a penthouse apartment? If you want to be in the rental pool, it's $2,500 to pay to be, to have the rental ready package. So that's to have your unit, completely ready for the rental program. And as I said, nothing under 1 month. But owners, can stay as long as they want. So some people may want to opt into the rental management and some may not. The rental, if you're in the rental program, it's a fee of $250 a month, and they take a 15% commission off of the gross rental income. So these are where we get into like more number details than I'm going to get into in this video, but those are kind of the basics. That's about it, actually. So that kind of covers my portion of going over the project details and what I was able to, research and put together on the market in general. And now let's get back to hearing from Liz on how deals are structured. I put together a digital guide on pre-construction in Panama, and the link to download that is in the video description below. So if you're interested in pre-construction in Panama, this kind of has a comprehensive overview with some links. And there's also a link to the Real Estate Outlook report from Panama Equity Real Estate. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the actual getting into the contract process. Yeah. What does that look like? I've decided, yes, I want to go ahead with this project. Yeah. What do we do now?
Well, first of all, I know that people from the US go, oh my God, is seriously the contract's only like 4 or 5 pages? Because in the US it's like a book. Yes. I know in Australia it's the same. So the contracts in Panama is super simple. The public registry here is completely transparent. So once a deed has been passed, you can actually go in, jump into the public registry and see your property there. And like I mentioned before, you've got all the same rights as a local does when buying real estate in Panama. The contracts are fairly simple. Developers generally have their own legal team that do the contracts for you. Something to keep in mind with pre-construction, all contracts in Panama, by law, as a way to protect the buyer, some of the smaller developers were actually running out of money. So there were projects just not being completed because some of the smaller developers, they can't get funding from the big banks here. So they actually build as they sell.
Yes.
Risky business, right? You need to be fully funded, in my opinion, before you even break ground, because if not, you don't want to rely on sales to be able to build, because then you can get in the position where you're half built, sales for whatever reason, another pandemic or whatever, stop, and then you can't continue building the building. So now there's what's called an increment clause in all the sales contracts in Panama. The minimum's like 5%. Burn generally puts in their contracts about 8%. Some developers put up to about 20%. And that's in there to protect the buyer, so that if the project can't be completed, the developer can actually go and say, okay, the cost of the unit is going to be like 8% more, right? Now, if that does happen, the developer has to prove. That's pretty much what happens at towards the end of the project, or whenever if the project can't continue, they have to go to everyone that's bought and say, we need to ask you for an extra 8% or more, and it gets tacked onto the final price. But you also have an exit strategy. Like, say if you don't have that 8%, the developer by law has to return the money to you. So it's actually a great thing. It can't be removed from the sales contracts because the actual banks require it to be able to fund the projects. So I've had clients all the time say, I want it removed. It can't be removed. It has to be in there, right? And it's really to protect the end user, because ultimately you want to make sure that the building gets finished. The great thing about the clause though is that it gets charged to everybody. So it's not like one person that bought at the beginning isn't going to get charged, or one person that bought at the end isn't going to get charged. It's going to get charged across the board. So any sort of equity or appreciation that you've got is still going to exist, but you'll just have that extra lump sum payment, which is added into the final price. I know at Burn, they've never charged it. They've never had to charge it. They actually know how much it costs to build, but I can't say that they never will charge it. I mean, if say the cost of concrete goes up, or minimum wage in Panama goes up, or one of these items that can actually affect the financial status of a building, it may have to be charged. So owners have to keep that in mind when they're buying pre-construction in Panama.
Well, that's good to know that they haven't had to do that, and that they don't have a history of doing that, because I'm sure that happens too, where a developer will just use that as a way to get more cash. I know that when I was renovating my house, unfortunately, prices had gone up significantly for cement, like bags of cement and all the other stuff I was buying. I can't even remember, like all the, all those construction materials. And the guy that I was working with, I kept telling him, don't tell me. I don't want to know how cheap these things were a year ago. You know?
We're living in the now. I get that.
So that's actually I think that's really beneficial to have a shorter contract, because the contracts in the States are just insane. I mean, they can be like hundreds of pages.
It can be overwhelming. And I mean, especially when you're buying in another country and it's your first time. But generally the developers will also translate the contract English and Spanish too. So you like a side-by-side contract where you can be cross-checking. They use official translators to translate their contracts. I know for the Western residences, it will be a side-by-side contract by an official translator. So I think that really gives people peace of mind, so they know what they're signing.
And so if they had a question about the contract, there's obviously a legal team at Burn that they can consult with?
Yeah, absolutely.
How many of those people generally would get like their outside counsel to review the contract?
Look, over my years of doing this, I would say maybe 20% of the people get an outside person to take a look at the contract. Absolutely doable. The legal team at Burn will work with any lawyer that you might have. It just depends on people's comfort level. If you'd rather have a second eye to go over it, absolutely. Generally, developers don't really change the contracts. Very minor changes, because it's pretty standard. Everything in there is pretty standard. But yeah, absolutely, people want to use their lawyers, their local lawyers. Generally, we don't recommend getting a US lawyer involved, because they've got no idea about Panamanian law, but there's plenty of bilingual lawyers here that we can recommend, or that they can find through other sources.
But one of the detriments to doing that is a lot of the lawyers will charge a fee based on the purchase price of the property, right? They won't just charge like, oh, I'll just review it for you for a flat fee, right?
Depends on the lawyer. Some charge like 1% of the total value, which is exorbitant for if we're looking at a very standard pre-construction. I mean, definitely buying resales in Panama, or buying like previously loved properties, absolutely get a lawyer, because you need to make sure that all the taxes have been paid. You need to make sure that the payment plan protects you. I know, like with developers and pre-construction, I mean, the funds are being sent into a trust. So each building has its own trust account by the developer. You get a legal receipt for all the funds paid. But if you're buying a resale, you don't want to be obviously sending money direct to owners. You need to make sure that you've got like a lawyer actually setting it up, so that you're protecting yourself.
So speaking of that, so does someone pay the bank the funds, and then the bank releases the funds to the developer?
So each building has its own trust account with the bank, and so they don't. Empress Burn is a company. Empresas, which is company, Burn's company. They have many buildings, many projects. They don't mix funds between the buildings, which is wonderful. Some buildings never take off. Like, I've been doing this for a long time, and there have been a few buildings that have never taken off, right? And I know that all my clients have been refunded in full. Sometimes market conditions change. I remember we went to open a building in Coronado, large 3-bedroom units. For those that know Coronado Golf, we were like, let's do a whole building with the big units, like what we've got on the top floor there. Big 3 bedrooms. Price point was over 500,000. When out in that area, really the magic number's 250. Like a lot of people don't want to pay over 250 in the Coronado Gorgona area. Like if you look at the pyramid of buyers, most people don't want to spend over 250. So that project never went ahead. My clients got refunded, right? So I think it's also important to keep in mind with pre-construction is you never know when the project's going to be completed.
Yeah.
You only know from once the developer has the construction permit, because then it's in the contract that they'll finish the building within 36 months with a bit of a buffer from the construction permit. So for clients that are like, oh, I want to make sure it's going ahead, make sure you're buying in an area where you've got a niche market, where you're not going to have a whole pile of competition of other projects being built, right? If you're nervous about pre-construction, buy into a building that's already broken ground. You're not going to have the same chunk of equity in the buy because the prices would have already gone up, but you know that it's going to be done in a certain amount of time from once they've got the construction permit. So I think that's all really important things to think about when you're buying. Or if you know for sure you want to be living in Panama in a year, buy something already finished.
Yeah.
You know, or if you like the concept of pre-construction for all the reasons that we've talked about, rent in the same area. For example, people buying in the new Western residences, if they're wanting to move to Panama in 2 years, say, when the building's not going to be done, rent in Casa Bonita so you can start getting a feel for the lifestyle, start making friends, and start your life. Like, why wait if you don't want to wait? You know, you can always rent something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And life is short.
Life is short. Let's just get out there, you know. And I think also people are always asking me, well, what's my exit strategy? What if I move to Panama and this isn't what I want? Most developers will allow you to pass the contract to a new buyer. So if you do want, like say people buy into the Western residences and they decide after a couple of years that they don't want the property, the developer will allow you to transfer the contract to a new buyer. There is a penalty, generally it's about 10 grand, but it is a way that, you know, that is an exit strategy if you wanted it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes like I had to pay a penalty when my funds didn't come through for Royal Palm.
Yep.
But it actually was the best thing that happened because I ended up in Valle, which is a cooler climate that I love so much.
Yeah.
And I have a house and a garden.
Yeah. That's
So
right.
yeah, sometimes taking those losses is actually
It's
a
meant to be,
decent
maybe.
investment.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's right.
yeah. At least
And I like
that's the way I like to look at it.
No, and I
anyway.
think, but that's good. It's a good like glass half full.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I look at the old concept of analysis paralysis.
Yes.
Sometimes you can stop from making a big move. Like I know that I've got so many clients over all my time of doing this that I know are living an amazing life here in Panama. I know that they're healthier. I know that the produce is less contaminated. I know that the climate is better for the bones, and I know it's super social. And like so many of my clients, I know we talked about this earlier today, so many of my clients come here by themselves. Like they're single, they're widowed, they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they're making the move because they want the adventure, worried to do it by themselves. But the plus of Panama is, you know, and I know too, like we have an expat culture here. There's people from all over the world. If you move here by yourself, you're going to meet other people that know what it's like to move out of their comfort zone. This isn't suburbia. This isn't suburbia where you don't know your neighbors. This is where you can jump on a WhatsApp group and you can find out what social work you can be involved in, what church groups you can be involved in. I know spay the strays, you know, you could be the little shaver. I mean, there's so many things that you can get involved in here. There's happy hours and sporting groups and pickleball clubs and with other people from all around the world, and you open up your social circle. And, you know, and I think the plus of being in like a condo building is that part of your social life becomes the residents in your building. Like my favorite moments here in Panama are with some of my neighbors in this building. It's easy.
Yeah.
You know, and they're wonderful, and people from all over the world, so it's fun.
And you know, I'm definitely an introvert and becoming more of a hermit.
Yeah.
But I appreciate having the expat community because it does give me the socialization that I do need. I mean, it's healthy to be social. We're human beings. We need that interaction.
That's right.
So yeah, in a project like this where, you know, you're just kind of casually seeing people in the building or at the pool.
You don't feel isolated.
Yeah, which is important.
It is. And I know in the existing building, Casa Bonita, I mean, most Friday nights there's a happy hour and residents go up there and have drinks together, and, you know, it's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Liz, you've been an incredible source of information. I'm really impressed with how much you know. Your knowledge base is so extensive, from, you know, just the local area, the infrastructure projects, financing, you know, pre-construction deals in general, Empress's burn in specific. Thank you so much for your time. And do you have any final thoughts you want to leave with my subscribers?
Well, I have to say, it's wonderful to see you again. It's been a while.
I
No,
know.
it's my absolute pleasure. And, you know, I just love that your, it's French. I'm not even going to say it, but I love your joy in life. And I love the fact that you've done this and you're real. And I think it's great that your subscribers are following you, and you bring in a very real perspective, and I think it's amazing. So thanks for inviting me to do this with you.
Thank you. See you next time.
See you.